Welcome back, Coinology. When people hear the words 1 cent coin, most of them instantly think of something small, forgotten, and almost worthless, something you might leave behind in a drawer or toss into a jar without a second thought. But in the world of coin collecting, history, and rare mint errors, even a humble 1 cent coin can become the center of jaw-dropping stories, intense debate, and eye-watering valuations that reach into the millions of dollars, and the 1979 1 cent coin is a perfect example of how an ordinary-looking penny can turn into an extraordinary topic of fascination, speculation, and legend. The year 1979 was a time of transition in the United States, economically, politically, and culturally, and coins produced during this era reflect not just metal and design, but the story of a nation moving through inflation, changing mint technology, and evolving standards of production. The 1979 1 cent coin, struck at the Denver Mint, carries with it all of that background, embedded quietly into a small copper-colored disc that most people have probably held in their hands at least once without realizing what they were touching. To understand why the 1979 1 cent coin is talked about in relation to massive values, even figures as high as $264 million in extreme claims and sensational discussions, you first have to understand what this coin actually is in its standard form. This coin belongs to the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, a design that had already been in circulation for decades by 1979. On the obverse, or front side, the coin features the familiar right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. This portrait had first appeared in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, making it one of the longest-running portrait designs in U.S. coinage history. By 1979, this design was deeply ingrained in American daily life, appearing in pockets, cash registers, and change jars across the country. The reverse side of the 1979 1 cent coin displays the Lincoln Memorial, a design created by Frank Gasparo and introduced in 1959. The memorial is shown with strong, symmetrical lines, and if you look very closely, you can actually see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, making this one of the few U.S. coins to feature the same person on both sides. This reverse design remained in use until 2008, meaning the 1979 penny is part of a long and familiar chapter in American coinage, yet familiarity does not automatically mean insignificance. In terms of physical specifications, the 1979 1 cent coin weighs approximately 3.11 grams. At this time, U.S. pennies were still composed primarily of copper, specifically about 95% copper with the remaining 5% made up of zinc and small amounts of tin. This composition gives the coin its warm, reddish-brown color when new, which can tone over time into deeper browns or even darker shades depending on environmental exposure. The diameter of the coin is about 19.05 millimeters, and the edge is plain, with no reading. These technical details might sound boring to a casual observer, but to collectors, even a slight deviation in weight, diameter, or metal composition can be the difference between a common coin and a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The D Mint mark on the coin indicates that it was produced at the Denver Mint. In 1979, the Denver Mint struck a massive number of 1 cent coins, numbering in the billions. This high mintage is one of the main reasons why most 1979 pennies are considered common in circulated condition. You can still find them today in pocket change, coin rolls, and old jars of saved pennies. In normal condition, without any special characteristics, a 1979 penny is typically worth only face value, or perhaps a few cents if it is in uncirculated condition with strong luster and minimal marks. So how does a coin like this become associated with astronomical figures like $264 million? The answer lies not in the ordinary examples, but in the world of extreme rarity, minting anomalies, hypothetical errors, and legendary discoveries that fuel the imagination of collectors and content creators alike. Throughout coin collecting history, there have been cases where a single error coin, produced accidentally due to a mistake in the minting process, has sold for enormous sums of money. These errors can include off-metal strikes, double dies, missing mint marks, wrong planchets, or transitional compositions that were never meant to enter circulation. During the late 1970s, the U.S. Mint was preparing for a major change in penny composition. Rising copper prices were making it increasingly expensive to produce 1 cent coins with such a high copper content. Although the official switch to copper-plated zinc cents did not occur until 1982, the years leading up to that change were filled with testing, experimentation, and internal adjustments within the minting system. Whenever a mint is in a period of transition, the risk of errors and anomalies increases, and collectors know this very well. That is why coins from transitional periods are often examined with extreme care. Some of the most sensational claims surrounding the 1979 D1 cent coin involve hypothetical or rumored examples struck on the wrong metal planchet, such as a coin accidentally struck on a silver, aluminum, or even experimental alloy blank. If such a coin were to be authenticated, verified, and confirmed as a unique or extremely rare mint error, its value could skyrocket beyond anything seen for ordinary pennies. In extreme theoretical scenarios, especially if a coin were one of a kind, tied to a documented mint experiment, and preserved in pristine condition, collectors sometimes speculate about values reaching into the tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars. These figures are often used in dramatic storytelling and viral content, and while they are not representative of the normal market, they keep interest alive and drive people to check their change more carefully. Another area of fascination is the possibility of dramatic double die errors. A double die occurs when the coin's design is impressed twice at slightly different angles during the die creation process, resulting in visible doubling of letters, numbers, or design elements. Famous examples like the 1955 double die penny have sold for enormous sums relative to their face value. If a previously unknown, extremely strong double die variety were discovered on a 1979 D penny, especially one showing dramatic doubling on the date, mint mark, or Lincoln's portrait, it could instantly become one of the most talked about modern error coins in U.S. history. Condition also plays a massive role in value. Coins are graded on a scale that evaluates wear, luster, strike quality, and surface preservation. A 1979 D penny that has never been circulated and retains full original mint luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks can be graded at the highest levels by professional grading services. While even a perfect standard example would not approach extreme valuations, when condition is combined with rarity, errors, or unique characteristics, the results can be extraordinary. The history of the penny itself adds emotional and cultural weight to these discussions. The 1-cent coin has been a symbol of everyday America for over a century, representing small value, thrift, and accessibility. Abraham Lincoln's presence on the coin connects it to themes of unity, perseverance, and national identity. When collectors talk about a penny being worth millions, part of the fascination comes from the contrast between the coin's humble purpose and its potential extraordinary value. Stories circulate online and within collecting communities about people discovering rare pennies in inherited collections, old bankrolls, or even pocket change, stories where a single coin changes someone's life overnight. Whether these stories are exaggerated, misunderstood, or occasionally true, they fuel a sense of possibility. The 1979 D1 cent coin, because it is common enough to be found yet old enough to feel historic, sits right in the sweet spot for this kind of dream-driven interest. As the market for rare coins continues to evolve, driven by auctions, private collectors, and global interest, discussions about value become more intense. While the vast majority of 1979 D pennies will never be worth more than a few cents, the idea that somewhere, perhaps in a forgotten box or an untouched roll, there could exist an extraordinary example keeps collectors searching. The claimed market figures of hundreds of millions of dollars represent the absolute extreme edge of speculation, tied not to the average coin, but to the rarest conceivable version of it. Once you step deeper into the mechanics of how a 1-cent coin like the 1979 D is actually created, the story becomes even more intense, because every single stage of minting is an opportunity for something to go unexpectedly wrong, and in the world of coin collecting, wrong can sometimes mean incredibly valuable. At the Denver Mint in 1979, massive industrial presses were operating day and night, striking thousands of coins per minute. Metal blanks, known as planchets, were fed into machines with tremendous force, and each blank was struck between two dies engraved with the coin's design. Under perfect conditions, this process creates uniform, predictable coins, but perfection is rare in any industrial system, especially one operating at such high speeds. One of the most intriguing possibilities surrounding the 1979 D1 cent coin involves off-metal strikes. These occur when a planchet intended for a different denomination or composition accidentally enters the penny production line. Imagine a blank meant for a dime, a foreign coin, or even an experimental alloy being struck with the Lincoln cent design. The result would be a coin that looks like a penny but feels wrong in the hand, weighs differently, sounds different when dropped, and shows unusual color or texture. Such coins are immediately fascinating to experts because they represent clear evidence of a minting mistake that should never have left the facility. In the late 1970s, the U.S. Mint was quietly experimenting with alternative metals due to rising copper prices. Although the official transition to copper-plated zinc pennies did not occur until a few years later, test planchets, and experimental blanks were sometimes present in mint facilities. If even one of these experimental blanks was accidentally struck with a 1979 D-cent die and escaped into circulation, it would represent a historic transitional error. The value of such a coin would not be based on face value or even typical collector demand, but on its uniqueness and historical significance. In extreme theoretical cases, where documentation confirms a one-of-a-kind error tied to a major change in U.S. coinage, valuations can reach staggering heights, sometimes cited in sensational terms like hundreds of millions of dollars. Another category that keeps collectors obsessively examining 1979 D pennies is die variety errors. Dies wear down over time, crack, clash with each other, or receive damage during preparation. A die crack, for example, appears as a raised line on the coin's surface, caused by a crack in the die itself. Some cracks are minor and common, but others are dramatic, running across Lincoln's face or through the date and lettering. In rare cases, pieces of the die can break off entirely, creating what is known as a cud, a blob-like raised area on the coin. The more dramatic and visually striking the error, the more desirable it becomes. Die clashes are another fascinating phenomenon. These occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between. When this happens, elements of one side's design can be transferred faintly onto the other die. The result is a coin where ghostly outlines of the reverse design appear on the obverse, or vice versa. A strong die clash on a 1979 D penny, especially one that is clearly visible without magnification, can command serious attention and value in the collector market. Then there are double dies, which are among the most famous and sought-after errors in U.S. coinage. Unlike mechanical doubling, which is relatively common and less valuable, true doubled dies occur during the creation of the die itself. This results in clear, separated doubling on letters, numbers, and design elements. On a 1979 D penny, collectors carefully examine the date, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and Lincoln's facial features for signs of true doubling. A strong doubled die that was previously undocumented would instantly become a headline discovery, potentially rewriting what collectors know about this year in mint. Condition continues to amplify everything. A rare error coin that is heavily worn will still be valuable, but the same error in near-perfect or flawless condition can multiply that value many times over. Professional grading services use magnification, precise measurements, and strict standards to assign grades, and these grades heavily influence market prices. A top population coin, meaning the finest known example of its kind, often becomes the centerpiece of elite collections and high-profile auctions. The psychology of the coin market also plays a critical role in how values are perceived and discussed. When collectors believe a coin is rare, historically important, or newly discovered, demand can explode almost overnight. Auction houses, online platforms, and social media amplify these stories, sometimes blurring the line between confirmed facts and speculative hype. A rumor of a unique 1979 D penny can spread rapidly, encouraging thousands of people to search their own coins, which in turn fuels more discussion and interest. It is within this environment that extreme figures like $264 million are sometimes mentioned. These numbers are not reflective of average market conditions but are used to illustrate the absolute ceiling of what could be imagined if a coin met every possible criterion of rarity, condition, documentation, and desirability. A one-of-a-kind 1979 D penny, struck on an experimental planchet, in pristine condition, with full authentication and historical backing, would not just be a coin, it would be a national artifact. At that level, the buyers are no longer just collectors, but institutions, museums, and ultra-wealthy individuals seeking something truly irreplaceable. The history surrounding the year 1979 adds another layer of intrigue. The United States was dealing with inflation, energy crises, and economic uncertainty. Coin production was under pressure to remain cost-effective, and discussions about the future of the penny were already underway. Every coin struck during this time carries the fingerprint of those challenges. The 1979 D penny is a snapshot of an era where even the smallest denomination was becoming expensive to produce, forcing the mint to rethink long-standing traditions. For everyday people, the idea that a penny could be worth millions is powerful because it represents hope and possibility. It suggests that value is not always obvious, that something overlooked can become extraordinary under the right circumstances. This is why people continue to check old jars, inherited collections, and rolls from banks. The 1979D penny remains accessible enough to be found, yet mysterious enough to keep imaginations running wild. As you hold a 1979D 1-cent coin in your hand, you are holding more than just a piece of copper-based metal. You are holding a product of industrial might, historical transition, artistic legacy, and economic pressure. Most examples will remain simple tokens of daily commerce, but a tiny fraction may carry secrets that have yet to be uncovered. The difference between a coin worth 1 cent and one worth a fortune can be microscopic, invisible to the untrained eye, and locked behind decades of neglect. And as collectors continue to study, catalog, and debate every known variety, every new discovery adds another chapter to the story, keeping alive the dream that somewhere out there, the ultimate 1979D penny is still waiting to be found, silently sitting in a place no one has thought to look yet. By the time a collector reaches this stage of understanding, the conversation about the 1979D 1-cent coin stops being only about metal and mistakes and starts becoming about time, survival, and the incredible journey a tiny object takes as it moves through decades of human hands. Every single penny struck in 1979 began its life in the same way, freshly minted, bright, and uniform, but from the moment it left the Denver Mint, its future became unpredictable. Some were immediately spent, some were saved, some were damaged, and a very small number followed strange and unlikely paths that would one day make them the subject of intense scrutiny and debate. One of the most overlooked aspects of value is survival rate. While billions of 1979D pennies were produced, far fewer remain today in pristine condition. Pennies circulate heavily, more than almost any other denomination. They are dropped, scraped, corroded, bent, and exposed to moisture and chemicals. Over time, this constant abuse dramatically reduces the number of high-grade examples. This is why even a common coin can become surprisingly valuable in top condition, and why collectors pay close attention to luster, strike sharpness, and surface preservation. Original mint luster is especially important. When a coin is freshly struck, microscopic flow lines on the surface reflect light in a distinctive way, creating a shimmering effect. Once that luster is broken by wear or improper cleaning, it can never truly be restored. A 1979D penny that still retains full original luster after decades is already something special, even without an error. Combine that level of preservation with a dramatic mint error or rare variety, and the value discussion shifts dramatically. Storage and handling play a huge role in this survival story. Many of the finest coins in existence today survived only because someone, knowingly or unknowingly, protected them. Bank-wrapped rolls, mint bags, or even forgotten boxes in drawers sometimes preserve coins in near-perfect condition for decades. It is entirely possible that the most valuable 1979D penny has not yet been discovered simply because it has been sitting untouched since the day it was minted. Another fascinating angle is the human tendency to ignore pennies altogether. For years, people have treated 1-cent coins as almost disposable. This neglect increases the rarity of well-preserved examples. In a strange twist of fate, the very lack of respect given to the penny may be one of the reasons certain examples become extraordinarily valuable later on. Scarcity is often created not by low production, but by high destruction. The market dynamics of rare coins are also influenced by timing. A coin that might have sold for a modest amount decades ago could fetch exponentially more today due to increased global interest in numismatics, online auctions, and social media exposure. Collectors from around the world can now compete for the same rare piece, driving prices upward in ways that were impossible in the past. The 1979D penny exists within this modern market, where information spreads instantly and demand can surge overnight. Professional authentication is a critical step in separating reality from fantasy. Any claim of an extremely valuable 1979D penny must be backed by thorough examination, metallurgical testing, and certification by a reputable grading service. These organizations verify weight, composition, die characteristics, and authenticity. Without this level of scrutiny, even the most exciting discovery remains just a story. But when a coin passes these tests, it gains credibility, and with credibility comes serious money. In discussions about extreme valuations, provenance becomes essential. Provenance is the documented history of a coin's ownership and discovery. A 1979D penny with a clear, traceable history that links it to a mint experiment, a specific production error, or a known event in mint history would carry far more weight than an isolated find with no documentation. Collectors and institutions are willing to pay enormous sums for certainty, history, and proof. There is also an emotional component to collecting that cannot be ignored. Coins are tangible connections to the past. Holding a penny from 1979 connects you to the people who lived, worked, and spent money during that year. For some collectors, this emotional resonance is just as important as rarity. When a coin combines emotional appeal with historical significance and extreme scarcity, it becomes irresistible. The idea of a 1979 penny being worth hundreds of millions of dollars sits at the intersection of fact, possibility, and imagination. It represents the ultimate dream scenario, where every variable aligns perfectly. While such evaluation would apply only to the rarest conceivable example, the mere possibility keeps the story alive and fuels ongoing interest. As the debate continues, new technologies are also changing the way coins are studied. Advanced imaging, digital microscopes, and precise metal analysis allow experts to detect details that were once invisible. This means that varieties and errors that went unnoticed for decades may still be discovered in the future. The story of the 1979 penny is not finished, it is still unfolding. Every time someone checks a roll of pennies or looks more closely at an old coin, they participate in this ongoing narrative. Most searches will end in disappointment, but all it takes is one extraordinary find to rewrite what is known and believed. The penny that seems ordinary today could become legendary tomorrow, and as long as the 1-cent coin continues to exist, both in circulation and in memory, the fascination with its hidden potential will endure, driven by curiosity, hope, and the timeless human desire to find treasure in the most unexpected places. At this point in the story, attention naturally shifts from theory and imagination to the hard reality of what collectors actually do when see a 1979 1-cent coin in front of them, because knowledge alone is not enough. Action, patience, and discipline are what turn curiosity into discovery. Experienced collectors do not simply glance at a coin and move on. They slow down, they observe, and they question every detail, knowing that the smallest clue can lead to something extraordinary. The first thing they examine is the overall strike quality. Not all coins are struck equally, even within the same year in mint. Some 1979 pennies show weak strikes, where details like Lincoln's hair, beard, or the steps of the Lincoln Memorial appear flat or mushy. Others display sharp, crisp details that suggest fresh dies and optimal striking pressure. A sharply struck coin is always more desirable, and if it also shows unusual characteristics, it immediately stands out. Next comes close inspection of the date and mint mark. The 1979 numerals are checked under magnification for spacing irregularities, thickness variations, or signs of doubling. The D-mint mark is especially important, as its shape, size, and position can reveal whether it was punched correctly or exhibits anomalies. In 1979, mint marks were still punched into dies by hand, not engraved as part of the master die. This means that variations and mistakes were possible. A repunched mint mark, where the D appears doubled or slightly offset, can significantly increase interest and value. Collectors also study the lettering closely. Words like liberty and in God we trust are examined letter by letter. True doubled dies show clear separation between doubled elements, not just fuzzy or flat distortion. Learning to distinguish true doubled dies from machine doubling is a skill developed over years, and it is one of the most important skills in error coin collecting. The surfaces of the coin tell their own story. Tiny marks, scratches, or discoloration can reveal how the coin was handled and stored. Natural toning, which develops over time due to environmental exposure, can be attractive and even increase value if it is even and pleasing. Artificial cleaning, on the other hand, often destroys value instantly. A clean coin may look shiny to the untrained eye, but under magnification, it reveals hairline scratches and unnatural brightness. Edge inspection is another critical step. The edge of a penny should be smooth and even. Any signs of reading, unusual thickness, or irregular shape can indicate an off-metal strike or a planchet error. A coin that is too thin, too thick, or unusually light or heavy compared to the standard 3.11 grams deserves immediate attention. Weight measurement is often overlooked by beginners but is essential for serious evaluation. A precise digital scale can reveal whether a 1979 penny matches its expected weight. Deviations can point toward wrong planchet errors or metal composition anomalies. Even a difference of a few tenths of a gram can be significant. Sound is another subtle clue. When gently dropped onto a hard surface, coins of different compositions produce different sounds. While this method is not definitive, experienced collectors sometimes use it as an initial indicator before conducting more precise tests. Documentation is where the process becomes truly professional. Collectors photograph coins under proper lighting, record weights, and measurements, and compare their findings with known varieties and errors documented in reference guides. This careful documentation not only helps with identification but also becomes crucial if the coin is later submitted for authentication. Submission to a grading service is a turning point. Once a coin is professionally graded and authenticated, it enters the formal market. At this stage, speculation gives way to verified facts. A certified 1979 D penny with a major error or unique characteristic becomes part of the official numismatic record, and its value can be discussed seriously. Market value, however, is not fixed. It is influenced by demand, rarity, condition, and timing. A rare coin offered during a period of high collector interest can sell for far more than the same coin offered at a quieter time. Auctions play a major role in establishing record prices, as competitive bidding can drive values beyond expectations. The stories of record-breaking sales often involve intense competition, last-second bids, and collectors who have waited years for a chance at a specific coin. These moments add drama and legend to the numismatic world. If a truly extraordinary 1979 D penny were to appear at auction, it would attract global attention, and the final price could redefine what people believe is possible for a 1-cent coin. Education and caution go hand in hand. For every genuine rare coin, there are countless altered, damaged, or misrepresented pieces. Knowledge protects collectors from disappointment and loss. Understanding the difference between true rarity and manufactured hype is essential, especially when values are discussed in extreme terms. Yet, despite all the caution, the excitement never fully disappears. The possibility remains, however small, that the next coin examined could be the one that changes everything. This sense of anticipation is what keeps collectors engaged year after year. The 1979 D 1-cent coin, simple in appearance but rich in potential stories, continues to invite careful examination and thoughtful debate. It sits at the crossroads of history, craftsmanship, and chance, reminding us that even the smallest objects can carry immense significance, and as long as people continue to look closely, to question, and to imagine, the journey of this coin will continue, driven by the hope that somewhere, hidden in plain sight, is a penny that will one day be spoken of in awe. By the time the discussion reaches this depth, it becomes clear that the story of the 1979 D 1-cent coin is not only about the coin itself, but about the people who chase it, study it, argue over it, and sometimes dedicate entire lifetimes to understanding such small pieces of metal. Numismatics is as much a human story as it is a material one, and every legendary coin is surrounded by personalities, rivalries, beliefs, and moments of obsession that shape its reputation. Collectors often begin their journey innocently, maybe by finding an unusual-looking penny or hearing a story about a rare coin worth a fortune. What starts as curiosity can turn into passion, and passion can become an all-consuming pursuit. The 1979 D penny, because it is still accessible in circulation and relatively recent in history, often becomes a gateway coin for beginners. People feel empowered knowing they can realistically find one, unlike older, extremely scarce coins that require significant investment to acquire. As collectors gain experience, their perception of value evolves. At first, value means money, but over time, it also means knowledge, rarity, and significance. A collector who discovers a new variety or error on a 1979 D penny contributes to the collective understanding of U.S. coinage. That contribution alone can be more rewarding than any monetary gain. Still, the potential financial upside remains a powerful motivator, especially when extreme figures like $264 million are discussed in hypothetical scenarios. Stories of legendary finds circulate constantly. Tales of someone discovering a rare coin in an old roll, a deceased relative's collection, or even a pocketful of change capture the imagination. These stories are repeated, embellished, and sometimes misunderstood, but they serve an important purpose: they keep the community engaged and hopeful. Whether or not a 1979 D penny will ever truly reach such astronomical value, the belief that it could is enough to keep people searching. The role of media cannot be ignored. YouTube videos, online forums, and social platforms amplify both information and misinformation. A single video claiming a penny is worth millions can reach millions of viewers in days. This exposure brings new collectors into the hobby, but it also creates confusion. Separating genuine numismatic insight from sensationalism becomes increasingly important. Responsible collectors learn to verify claims, consult reputable sources, and rely on professional authentication. Despite the noise, real discoveries do happen. New varieties and errors are still being documented today, even for coins that have been studied for decades. This proves that the door is never fully closed. The 1979 D penny still has secrets to reveal, and as technology improves, the chances of uncovering subtle anomalies increase. The future of the penny itself adds another layer of complexity. Discussions about eliminating the 1-cent coin from circulation have been ongoing for years. If the penny were ever discontinued, surviving examples would instantly take on new historical importance. Coins from the final decades of production, including 1979 D, would represent the closing chapters of a long tradition. This possibility adds speculative pressure to the market and keeps interest alive. Economic factors also influence perception. Inflation erodes purchasing power, making large numbers seem less shocking over time. What once sounded impossible may one day seem merely extraordinary. In that context, discussions of extreme valuations serve not only as hype but as reflections of changing economic realities in collector psychology. At its core, the fascination with the 1979 D penny is about contrast. A coin designed to represent the smallest unit of currency becomes a symbol of immense potential. That contrast is emotionally powerful. It speaks to the idea that value is not inherent but assigned, shaped by rarity, story, and human desire. The most important lesson for anyone captivated by this story is balance. Dream big, but learn deeply. Hope for discovery, but respect the facts. The real treasure in numismatics is not only the possibility of wealth but the understanding gained along the way. As the narrative continues to unfold, each examined coin adds another data point, another possibility. Somewhere, perhaps in a forgotten box, a sealed roll, or an overlooked collection, the next chapter of the 1979 D Pennies story is waiting to be written, and until that chapter is revealed, the legend grows, fueled by patience, curiosity, and the quiet thrill of turning over a simple 1-cent coin and wondering if it might be something more. As the story moves even further, it begins to touch something deeper than collecting and money, something almost philosophical, because the 1979 D 1-cent coin becomes a mirror reflecting how humans assign meaning to objects. A penny has no power on its own. It cannot decide its value or its fate. That power belongs entirely to people, to belief, to consensus, and to the stories that grow around it over time. In many ways, the hunt for a rare 1979 D penny is similar to the search for buried treasure. The odds are long, the path is uncertain, and disappointment is common, yet the search continues because the reward is not just the prize itself, but the journey. Each coin examined sharpens the eye, trains the mind, and builds patience. Even when nothing rare is found, the act of searching creates knowledge. Collectors often speak about intuition, a quiet sense that something is different about a coin before they can explain why. This intuition is built through years of exposure, through seeing thousands of ordinary examples until the unusual stands out instantly. When an experienced collector picks up a 1979 D penny and pauses, that pause is meaningful. It signals that something has caught their attention, something outside the expected pattern. The idea of extreme value also reshapes behavior. When people hear that a penny could be worth millions, they start treating even common coins with respect. They stop throwing them away. They look twice. This change in behavior alone increases the survival rate of coins and alters future scarcity. In this way, belief actively shapes reality. There is also a generational element. Coins pass from parents to children, from grandparents to grandchildren. A jar of pennies saved casually decades ago can become a serious collection in the hands of someone who understands what to look for. The 1979 D penny often appears in these inherited collections, linking generations through a shared object and a shared sense of curiosity. The emotional highs and lows of collecting are intense. The excitement of thinking you may have found something rare, followed by the disappointment of learning it is common, is a cycle every collector knows well. Yet even disappointment teaches valuable lessons. It refines judgment and builds resilience. Over time, collectors learn to enjoy the process itself rather than focusing solely on the outcome of the market. Meanwhile, continues to evolve. New collectors enter, older collectors exit, tastes change, and values shift. Coins once ignored become fashionable, and others fade from attention. The 1979 D penny remains relevant because it sits at a crossroads, modern enough to be familiar, old enough to feel historical, common enough to be accessible, and mysterious enough to inspire speculation. When people speak of a $264 million penny, they are often expressing more than a price. They are expressing wonder. They are imagining a perfect convergence of rarity, history, condition, and desire. Whether or not such a price is ever realized is almost secondary to the role the idea plays. It keeps the story alive. It keeps eyes focused and hands searching. Museums and institutions also play a role in shaping perception. When a rare coin enters a museum collection, it gains legitimacy and permanence. It becomes part of the official historical record. If an extraordinary 1979 D penny were ever displayed publicly, it would instantly elevate the coin's status and reshape how the year is viewed within Numismatics. At the same time, private collectors drive much of the excitement. Their competition, secrecy, and passion create the drama that fuels record-breaking sales. Behind closed doors, decisions are made that the public never sees, negotiations that determine which coins become legends and which remain quietly held. The future remains unwritten. Coins continue to be rediscovered, re-evaluated, and reclassified. What is considered impossible today may become accepted tomorrow. The 1979 D penny exists within this space of possibility, where certainty and mystery coexist, and so the search continues, quietly and relentlessly, in homes, banks, shops, and collections around the world. Each penny turned over carries a whisper of potential, a reminder that value is not always obvious and that sometimes the smallest things invite the biggest dreams. The journey of the 1979 D 1-cent coin is far from over. It lives on in questions, in searches, and in the enduring belief that somewhere, somehow, an ordinary-looking penny may still be waiting to reveal an extraordinary truth. By now the narrative reaches a point where imagination and reality almost blend together, because the longer a coin like the 1979 D 1-cent remains discussed, searched for, and debated, the more layers of meaning it gathers. It is no longer just a product of the Denver Mint in 1979, it becomes a symbol of persistence, of belief, and of the quiet thrill that keeps people looking closer at the everyday world around them. One of the most interesting patterns in coin collecting is how perception changes once knowledge spreads. A coin that was ignored for decades can suddenly become famous once collectors begin paying attention to specific details. When this happens, people start finding examples that were always there but never noticed. This phenomenon has occurred many times in numismatic history, and it could still happen with the 1979 D penny if a new, clearly defined variety or error gains widespread recognition. The role of reference books and databases becomes crucial at this stage. Once an error or variety is documented, it gains legitimacy. Collectors can compare their coins against known standards, and discussions become more focused and precise. For the 1979 D penny, every confirmed discovery strengthens the idea that more could exist, hidden among millions of ordinary pieces. There is also a strong educational ripple effect. As people learn what to look for, they become more observant not only with coins but with other historical objects. Coin collecting teaches attention to detail, patience, and critical thinking. The 1979 D penny, often used as an example in discussions about value and rarity, becomes a teaching tool as much as a collectible. The global aspect of the coin market adds another dimension. While the penny is a U.S. coin, collectors around the world participate in American numismatics. International demand can drive prices higher and create competition that did not exist in the past. A rare 1979 D penny, if discovered, would not be limited to interest within the United States, it would attract attention from collectors worldwide. Technology continues to reshape the field. Online auctions allow instant global bidding. High-resolution images let experts examine coins remotely. Digital communities share discoveries in real time. These tools mean that if an extraordinary 1979 D penny appears, it will not remain a secret for long. Its story would spread quickly, adding momentum to its reputation and value. There is also an ethical side to collecting that emerges with high-value coins. Questions of ownership, fair dealing, and transparency become important. Collectors debate how much information to share, when to reveal a discovery, and how to balance personal gain with contribution to the broader community. These debates shape the culture of numismatics and influence how legendary coins are remembered. The contrast between mass production and individual significance becomes especially striking here. Billions of pennies were struck, yet the entire discussion revolves around the possibility that one single example could stand apart from all the rest. This idea resonates deeply with people because it mirrors human experience, the hope that something ordinary can become extraordinary. Even skeptics play an important role. Their questions and challenges force claims to be tested and verified. Without skepticism, the field would collapse under the weight of false discoveries. Healthy doubt strengthens the credibility of genuine finds. In this sense, every debate about the 1979 D penny helps refine what is truly known. As time moves forward, fewer untouched coins remain. Each year that passes reduces the chance of discovering pristine examples, increasing the importance of those that survive. This gradual narrowing of possibilities adds urgency to the search and deepens the sense that history is slowly closing its doors. Ultimately, the fascination with the 1979 D 1-cent coin is not driven solely by money. It is driven by curiosity, by the joy of discovery, and by the human tendency to find meaning in small things. The idea that a coin worth 1 cent could represent something far greater captures attention in a way few objects can, and so the story continues to echo in conversations, videos, collections, and quiet moments spent examining a coin under a magnifying glass. The 1979 D penny remains a question mark, a challenge, and a dream all at once. As long as there are people willing to look closely, to learn, and to imagine, the legend will not fade. It will simply wait, patiently, like a small copper disc resting in the palm of a hand, inviting one more look, one more question, and one more possibility. As the journey stretches onward, the 1979 D 1-cent coin begins to feel almost alive in the collective imagination of collectors, not because it changes, but because people change around it. Each generation brings new eyes, new tools, and new interpretations, and with every shift, the coin gains another layer of meaning. What was once simply loose change becomes a time capsule, quietly carrying the marks of its era into the present. There is a powerful sense of patience in numismatics. Unlike many hobbies that demand instant results, coin collecting rewards those who are willing to wait, to study, and to accept uncertainty. The search for something extraordinary in a 1979 D penny may take years or even a lifetime, and that long horizon changes how people think about value. Value becomes less about speed and more about endurance. Some collectors describe moments of stillness when examining coins, where time seems to slow down. Under magnification, the smallest details become entire landscapes. A tiny die crack becomes a story. A slight misalignment becomes a mystery. The 1979 D penny, viewed this way, transforms from currency into a canvas shaped by machinery, history, and chance. There is also a quiet discipline remembered by seasoned collectors: never assume, always verify. Excitement must be balanced with restraint. Many coins that initially seem rare turn out to be damaged or altered. Learning to recognize this difference is part of the craft. With the 1979 D penny, this lesson is especially important because its familiarity makes it easy to overlook subtle but meaningful details. Community plays a central role in sustaining interest. Collectors share findings, debate interpretations, and celebrate discoveries together. Even disagreements push understanding forward. A claimed rare 1979 D penny might spark weeks or months of discussion, during which knowledge deepens and standards become clearer. In this way, the coin serves as a focal point for collective learning. The myth of the ultimate penny continues to inspire newcomers. Many begin their collecting journey with the hope of finding something life-changing. Over time, that hope matures into appreciation for the broader history of coinage. The 1979 D penny often remains in these collections as a reminder of where the journey began. Historical context keeps enriching the narrative. The late 1970s were a period of economic pressure and transition. Every coin struck during this time reflects those realities, whether through production choices or material considerations. Holding a 1979 D penny is like holding a fragment of that moment, preserved in metal. Speculation will always exist alongside scholarship. The challenge is learning to separate possibility from probability. While extreme valuations capture attention, the true significance of the 1979 D penny lies in what it represents: the intersection of mass production and individual discovery, of history and hope. The future promises new surprises. Coins that are considered common today may become rare tomorrow due to attrition, changing tastes, or new research. Advances in analysis may reveal details previously invisible. The door remains open, and so the cycle continues. Coins are examined, stories are told, and legends grow. The 1979 D 1-cent coin remains part of this ongoing rhythm, steady and unchanging, yet endlessly reinterpreted. It rests quietly in drawers, jars, and collections, waiting not for time to pass, but for attention to arrive. And as long as someone is willing to look closely, to wonder, and to imagine, the story will continue, shaped not by the coin alone, but by the people who believe there is more to see. As the story approaches its later stages, the tone naturally becomes more reflective, because after all the theories, techniques, debates, and dreams, what remains is a deeper understanding of why the 1979 D1 coin continues to matter. It matters not because of what it usually is, but because of what it might be. Possibility is its true currency. Over time, collectors begin to realize that certainty is rare in numismatics. Absolute answers are uncommon, and even experts are sometimes surprised. This uncertainty keeps the field alive. If everything were already known, there would be nothing left to search for. The 1979 D penny exists in this open space, where questions still outnumber answers. There is also a quiet respect that develops for the minting process itself. The machines that struck these coins were powerful, precise, and relentless, yet they were operated by humans and subject to human limitations. Every error tells a story of that imperfect collaboration between intention and reality. In this way, a flawed coin can feel more human than a perfect one. Collectors often reach a point where they stop asking only "what is this worth?" and begin asking "what is this telling me?" A 1979 D penny with unusual characteristics becomes a message from the past, a small clue about how things were done, what went wrong, and why it mattered. That shift in thinking changes everything. The emotional weight of discovery, even a small one, is real. Finding a minor variety or error can feel just as exciting as discovering something rare, because it represents progress in understanding. Each new detail learned adds confidence and sharpens skill. In this sense, every 1979 D penny examined contributes something, even if it is not extraordinary. The concept of legacy also comes into focus. Collections are often built with the future in mind. Collectors imagine passing their coins to someone else, along with the knowledge and stories attached to them. A simple penny becomes a teaching tool, a conversation starter, and a bridge between generations. Market hype will rise and fall, but knowledge remains. Prices fluctuate, trends shift, and attention moves on, yet the documented history of a coin endures. The 1979 D penny's place in that history is secure, regardless of whether a legendary example is ever found. At this stage, many collectors find peace in the process. The pressure to discover something world-changing fades, replaced by steady curiosity and enjoyment. The act of looking becomes its own reward. The penny no longer needs to be worth millions to be meaningful. Still, the dream never fully disappears. Somewhere in the background, the possibility remains, quiet but persistent. It is enough to keep people checking one more coin, opening one more roll, taking one more careful look, and that is perhaps the greatest power of the 1979 D1 coin. It teaches patience without demanding certainty. It invites curiosity without promising reward. It reminds us that history is often hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to slow down and notice. As the search continues, not with urgency but with quiet dedication, the coin story keeps unfolding, shaped by each new set of hands that examines it, each new mind that considers it, and each new generation that wonders what secrets might still remain locked inside a small, unassuming piece of metal. And so we arrive at the final reflection on the 1979 D1 coin, a coin that in its simplicity carries layers of meaning, potential, and history far beyond its face value. Its journey from the presses of the Denver Mint in 1979 to the present day is a story not just of metal and design, but of human curiosity, patience, and imagination. Each coin struck that year began life indistinguishable from the next, yet over time, some may have taken paths that set them apart through careful preservation, accidental error, or simple chance. These possibilities, real or imagined, are what give the 1979 D penny its enduring mystique. By now, it is clear that value is multi-dimensional. It is physical, dependent on composition, strike, and condition. It is historical, tied to the era of its creation and the context of the late 1970s. It is emotional, reflecting the hope, excitement, and devotion of collectors who have spent decades seeking, studying, and imagining. And it is speculative, fueled by the tantalizing notion that somewhere, perhaps in a forgotten roll, a truly extraordinary 1979 D penny might exist, a coin that defies the ordinary and captures the imagination of the world. Even ordinary examples of the 1979 D penny carry lessons. They remind us of the sheer scale of production, the precision of the minting process, and the care needed to preserve everyday objects. They connect us to Abraham Lincoln's legacy, the artistry of Victor David Brenner and Frank Gasparo, and the enduring symbolism of the Lincoln Memorial. Every small detail, from the flow lines of luster to the exact placement of the mint mark, is a trace of history frozen in copper. The most extraordinary potential lies not in certainty, but in possibility. The idea that a 1-cent coin could one day command millions of dollars captivates not because it is likely, but because it is imaginable. It represents the human attraction to rarity, mystery, and the thrill of discovery. The 1979 penny stands as a reminder that even the smallest things can hold immense stories, that value is often hidden, and that extraordinary outcomes sometimes emerge from the most ordinary beginnings. Collectors, historians, and enthusiasts will continue to study, search, and debate. Auctions will reveal surprises. New technologies will uncover details previously unseen. Stories of remarkable finds will continue to circulate, inspiring generations of new collectors. In all of this, the 1979 penny remains a touchstone, a symbol of the intersection between history, chance, and human curiosity. In the end, the legacy of the 1979 1-cent coin is not measured solely by its market value, but by the fascination it inspires, the knowledge it imparts, and the dreams it fuels. It is a coin that invites closer inspection, deeper thought, and, above all, wonder. It reminds us that even in the smallest corners of the world, among coins that might otherwise be overlooked, history waits patiently, waiting for those who are willing to look carefully enough to see it. And so, as we close the chapter on this exploration, the 1979 penny continues to rest quietly in pockets, drawers, and collections, unassuming yet extraordinary, ordinary yet full of potential. Its story is ongoing, shaped by every hand that touches it, every mind that studies it, and every heart that dares to imagine what might still be waiting to be discovered. The 1979 1-cent coin, small in size but immense in possibility, remains a timeless testament to curiosity, patience, and the enduring allure of the unknown.